Welcome everyone to KC Grid Talk, sponsored by shopakr.com. We're recapping rounds number 3 and 4 of the SKUSA Winter Series at Homestead. My name's Emory Lyda, back again for another weekend or another week. Slightly different background this time, back at home. Got this set up in the last 30 minutes. Shout out to my dad for the lighting. And I'm joined by Alex Searle as always. Alex, pretty good weekend for you. Chiefs won. It was mostly out of the rain, but we did get a little bit of rain racing, like you said last week. So pretty good weekend.
I'd say it went pretty well. I got the rain I wanted, and we got a dry teardown. All right, couldn't have asked for anything better. I do wish the senior shifter race was somehow still a little bit more wet, but nonetheless, we got a heater of a race in senior. Pretty good in the shifter class there for the opening couple of laps. But yeah, can't wait to talk about the weekend recap, and we got a little special guest coming up in a few minutes time. But David, first of all, before we get into Ale, how are you doing, David?
Well, I took a lot of L's this week. I said Danny would win shifter. He didn't. I said Ryan would win senior. He didn't. I said it wouldn't rain. It did. I said the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. They didn't. We're taking a lot of L's. They've added like 4 L's to my last name. But, it was still all in all pretty good weekend. I think we got a lot to talk about over the next couple of hours. And boy, Emory, there's a lot of trophies in the background. Have you won a few things in the past?
Yeah, contrary to what certain people might believe, I'm not the best racing driver, but I've done a little bit. Um, but no, one guy that's won a lot more than me in racing and has been on fire the last couple of weekends, last couple of months is Alisander Dulio. And after a little bit of difficulty in rounds 1 and 2, this weekend we've got him on the show. Ale, how are you doing, man?
Good evening, guys. I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Solid
We're
enough.
good. We're good, buddy. Hey, Ollie, I want to start this off because you've had, about as good of a start to a year that any driver could ask for, and especially in a pro class. What has it been like the past 2 months with the success that you've had, and to be able to be that dominant, especially in the KA side of things, but next 30 as well.
Yeah, it's been a great few months here. Winning both championships has obviously been great. We've been working super hard with the whole team, testing in December, and then yeah, it paid off these 2 months.
Yeah, for sure, buddy. Tell me about that, right? Because last year you had, out of all the pro classes, one of the best average finishes, right? But you couldn't get that win. Not a lot of podiums either, but you started out the year really strong so far. Is this something that you guys kind of expected heading into this year, or did you think that the Winter Series was still going to be a bit more development for you guys?
Yeah, honestly, last year was quite difficult. Being switching in between 3 teams, it was just a year of adapting for me. I never felt solid enough to go for race wins. It was always just learning and adapting. So I think, I was speaking to the team at the end of last year. I was like, especially after Supernats starting on front row, I was super excited for this year. We were all super pumped, and I felt way more confident for this year.
Yeah, and Ali, you kind of you switched teams multiple times last year. You went from Prime back to Interim S, and the first few races it looked like you had decent to good pace, but it maybe wasn't quite all the way at the front like you would have liked to. But like you mentioned, front row at Supernats, you come into SSKC at the very end of the calendar year, and then obviously the last month or so, it looks like your pace in both the KA side of things as well as X30 has been insane. But I guess my thing is, at what point over the last few months did you really feel like it kind of started to click for you? Where, we've seen you up at the front all the time. We've seen Intermess at different points last year, even before you got there, showing potential. But at what point did it really kind of seem to come together to find this ultimate pace that you've had as of late?
Yeah, honestly, at Supernas was when I realized, like, okay, we're getting there. We started our own engine program within the team with Franco Corelli, and since then, like, having an engine builder inside the team is really helpful. I know what I'm gonna have every week, so yeah, obviously that helps. And all as a team, we all work super hard to always be on pace.
Something that was
Yeah,
so impressive throughout Winter Series was your pace around the Homestead Miami track. Just kind of talk through what about Homestead specifically appeals to ADT so much.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think it's just a track that suits me. I don't drive there much throughout the year. I know everyone says like, oh, like I drive 100,000 laps there, but I only go in December, November, to test for Winter Series. But I think it's a track just that suits me well, and obviously it's my home track, so that does help a little bit.
Ale, last year when you switched to Inter MS, there were people, and I'm sure you heard the noise, right, of maybe not disagreeing, but questioning your decision to go to Inter MS. And this is not a knock on the team because they have now proven they are a powerhouse in the field. But before you joined, they were kind of a second tier to some of the big guys, right? That being said, you've had one of the best stretches in your career to start this year. What makes this team such a good fit for you?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's the team is it's growing a lot. The people within the team, the whole group is a very good group of people. They're all very full of knowledge of karting. They have multiple years of experience. So and we all just click. Honestly, when we're all very passionate about racing. So we all work super hard to just keep improving and improving. And there's more to come still.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about kind of the team as a whole, and I guess the last 6-7 months for you. But switching focus back towards Winter Series, I mean, it was the first kind of full-time program that you ran with both KA and X30 at the same time. And I mean, first off, the results of it all speak for themselves. I mean, in KA, you more or less had control of every single race, and outside of a tech DQ and then a little bit in the third race of the series, it looked pretty much faultless. And on X30 side of things, I mean, this is the best stretch you've had really in years. So, I mean, coming into Miami, I mean, you mentioned yourself, like you do get a good amount of laps in the fall and winter around the track, but still, like, what did it take for you to be able to be all the way at the front in both classes? And kind of how did running both classes change your approach when it came to this winter series?
I'm not sure. Like the pace has just been, we tested there in December. We tested in the rain too, which was good, even though the tire for this year changed in the rain and it changed a lot. But just, I'm not sure. I think just as a team, we worked really well. We struggled in X30 on Saturday, but we found the issue, and Sunday we proved that the pace was there all weekend. We just had an issue on Saturday. But yeah, I think the pace. I'm happy with the pace we had in both categories.
Do you think this is something that you guys can sustain for the whole year? I mean, because last year, like you said, you were never really comfortable in the driver's seat, but you seem a lot more comfortable, especially from Supernats, SKC, and now the Winter Series rounds, 1 through 4. So, is this something that now you guys can look forward? You guys have a for sure solution to everything that was going on last year. And is this something that you guys really can sustain for the year, you think?
Yeah, I mean, as a team, we're super happy with the pace. But we know that we need to work more because, you guys saw how fast RPG was this weekend. They had a good tenth or two clear on everyone. So I think we did great. All the kart republics we were all working super hard to catch them. But I think we still need to work. It's not just, oh, we won both championships, we're gonna sit here and wait. No, we're gonna work because everyone, not only RPG, everyone is gonna keep working hard to keep improving.
You mentioned
And
Kart Republic. I mean, one of those amazing parts about that final race was the synergy between both your team and the Trinity Racing organization. So, kind of talk about the teamwork within the Kart Republic stable and how you guys are all kind of working together to get this chassis up to the standards that RPG has set.
Yeah, we all help each other quite a bit. Well, Thomas helped Brandon a bit more there, but it's okay. Next time, I call it next time. I told him next time it better be me. But yeah, we all work hard. To beat all the other kart brands. Um, and then they obviously helped me. They were smart and helped me with the championship. So did Santiago Fernandez and with his Kart Republic. So yeah, it was funny because every time I look back in that final, there was always a Kart Republic, and then there was a Kart Republic in front of me too. So I was like, okay, I'm safe.
Yeah, I kind of want to bring up the celebration that you and Brandon Carr had right at the finish because it was very synchronized. You had Carr in P1 celebrating his first national win in the U.S., and then you had you with the celebrations that you had. And I guess for you personally, I mean, you're kind of in a situation where you're wanting to win the Winter Series, but you also have kind of the focus on naturally winning a race. And so, how hard was it to evaluate the risk versus reward of wanting to go for that race win, wanting to kind of beat Brandon, so to speak, but also knowing that in a sense, like Brandon and Thomas were kind of your protection?
Yeah, it was kind of difficult, to be honest. Like throughout the race, I was trying to keep an eye on where Ryan was because I knew he was the one that was fighting the championship with me. I couldn't find Donovan because I think he was involved in an incident, but yeah, I saw Ryan getting closer and closer and closer. So I wanted to stay in line with them and just try to hold the gap to Ryan. And then Brandon passed me with like 2 to go. Then he blocked in the final lap. He dropped a tire. So I was like, okay, maybe. Like I was planning on just staying P2, or even if Thomas passed me, stayed P3 because I just wanted the championship. At the end of the day, what everyone remembers is a championship, and I didn't want to risk it and have something happen and lose that. So yeah, I mean, when he defended and he kind of missed the corner, I was like, okay, I guess I'll take the win too. But then Thomas decided to help him.
What's the pressure like, right? Especially we spoke about it a little bit on Saturday. But knowing that you had such a strong rounds 1 and 2, rounds 3, you kind of struggled right for pace. So knowing on Sunday you needed a good result because Saturday was your drop. I mean, is there an added pressure going into that final, knowing that at the time Bonilla was in front of you, Norberg was right there. I mean, what's that championship mentality like going to that Sunday final?
Yeah, round 3 was difficult, and I was honestly worried, but I knew something wasn't right because when I was switched to the K, I felt very good. I felt comfortable, and when I was driving the X30, it was like uh, just another thing to drive. So I knew there was an issue. We just really couldn't find it, and then we actually found out before the final. We found what was wrong, and then I was pretty confident for Sunday, and we went out on the warm up on Sunday. We were fast. Qualifying was a bit difficult, but I was also on my own, so I knew the pace was there and everything felt more normal to me. And then obviously the final was good. So yeah, that was good to get off my chest.
Yeah, and
No.
another thing here, right? Because I want to go. I want to go back to the intermess, the team as a whole, right? Because Carlos is the team owner has openly said, how good of an asset you've been to the team. I mean, what's kind of that feeling like, knowing that your success for these guys has been such a contributing factor to the growth of this team on the national scale?
Yeah, I mean, I always try my best to to play a big role in the team and to help move forward. But it's not just me; it's everyone within the team clicks very well with me and works very well with me in order to grow together. So yeah, it's not just me.
Yeah, and coming into this year, you have really high aspirations. You had probably the best start to the season that anyone in the grid can say that they've had, but you're heading into Pro Tour now. You have a full national slate lining up. I mean, what are your expectations for this season? I mean, I think every driver says they want to win, but like, what does a good 2024 look like for Alisander Dulio?
To win, especially with winning the Winter Series. Like now, that's gonna be our, I don't know how to say, like our benchmark, our target is just gonna be to stay up there, stay in the front all year, and go for the titles.
Yeah, and then obviously, right, we got Pro Tour coming up. Um, First of all, I mean, is there a track that you look on that Pro Tour calendar and say, this is a track that I'm excited for? Is it all of them? And a second question on top of that is kind of Joe Turney coming back, right? He's going to be kind of an added thing for Car Republic. Is that pressure? Is that kind of an excitement thing for you? I mean, just talk to me about that a little bit.
On the track side, I'm honestly not even sure. I haven't seen the schedule, but with Joe coming back, I mean, it's great. Obviously, he's a very good driver. He'll be competitive for sure. He'll be up there with us, which is it's good because we could work together and keep improving and get the RPGs and all those other guys. But yeah, obviously it's one more guy to beat, so we're gonna have to beat him.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Joe coming back. You've got really, I mean, what looks to be a really stacked slate of drivers on the Kart Republic side of things across the different teams. But I want to ask you something about the event formats as we head into this year. I mean, you've got the Pro Show coming up. There's a lot of cash prizes. There's kind of a unique format coming to town. I mean, what were your initial reactions as you heard about it, and what are you looking forward to as we head into kind of, I guess, a new era of Pro Tour racing?
The new format seems cool. Xander actually showed me on Sunday, I think it was. I think it's cool because also the pro drivers can coach all the other drivers within the teams throughout the day, and then they go into their racing later in the afternoon. So it just gives more time for everything, and I think the hot pit and all of that is really cool.
Ale,
Yeah,
talk
you meant
about the balance between racing and coaching. When you're a pro driver, what is the day like? Do you have to shift your focus throughout the day? And does that make it difficult? And are you looking forward to the pro show format because you'll be able to focus on one thing at a time?
Yeah, the pro show does help because I could focus on coaching in the morning and throughout the day, and then racing in the afternoon. Right now, I mean, we only have a junior driver or sometimes just seniors with me that I have to keep an eye on. But yeah, it doesn't really make it super difficult, but definitely having the new format will help.
Yeah, you mentioned only having a few of the junior senior guys under your 10. I'm sure that's going to change soon with your added success. But away from the coaching side of things, because it helps that as well. Um, Excitement factor, right? For you pro guys, I mean, looking at the format, it's more of what we'd see in like an IndyCar style, right? With a major spectacle. It's really drawing to, how cool of a sport that we are a part of. I mean, is that something that you can look forward to as a driver, knowing that tire conservation is more important, qualifying is more important. There isn't really a way to kind of bounce back once you're knocked out. So, I mean, where is your head at now, looking at the schedule and seeing kind of the whole format?
Yeah, especially with the qualifying part of it. It's going to be very important to qualify in the front, and then I don't know if there's a few heats and a pre-final. Is that how it is? And then a final. But they're
Pre-final,
like
final.
yeah, pre-final, final, but they're like extended. I think it's like more laps, so that's going to be good because being conservative and being smart with the tires is gonna be a key factor there as well.
Yeah,
And then the super pole is also really cool too. I remember I think there used to be super pole for Rotax
yeah,
back
Yes.
when I was like
yeah,
in micro, and
yeah,
that was fun.
way back in like 2013, 2014. I was about to ask
Yeah,
you about that. I mean, I'm guessing like have you ever run a Super Bowl? That kind of answered my question. But B, like, how much does that change your strategy when it comes into qualifying and knowing that you only get those like 1 or 2 laps and all by yourself to have to focus on the lap?
it's gonna take a lot of focus. I think how is it you qualify if you qualify top 12, then it's top six,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, I think the format is you go group qualifying up until the top 12, and then everyone that's inside the top 12 gets one. I think it's one, maybe 2 flyer laps individually. I don't know. I'm not Xander. Xander has the complete breakdown, but that was my understanding, and that's consistent with how old Super Bowl used to work.
Yeah, but that's gonna be cool. I think it's gonna take a lot of focus, and it's gonna maybe create a little bit more pressure on the drivers, but it's gonna be fun. I'm excited for that.
And you mentioned, right, back to the tire conservation, because that's something that I'm looking forward to in terms of an extended final, not being able to just go out there and fly for 5-10 laps and then your tires are done. Um, is that something that you guys deal with on a week in, week out basis now in terms of tire conservation? Or are there certain tracks that you guys, circle and say, tires degrade harder here or there. And then obviously heading into the pro show with having to conserve tires, is that something that has already been a factor, or do you think it's going to be a factor now?
Yeah, it depends on the track, obviously, but it depends. If you're leading a pre-final by 10 seconds, you're obviously not going to push super hard. You're going to save them for the final, and then the same thing in the final. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago. I in Winter Series, I was on the Paralympic, and I saved. It depends the situation. I was second, and there was a big gap to third, so I just saved tires, overtook first, and then I had enough tire to get away. So I think that's going to start happening more with the new format because it's going to be longer races.
Do you think that plays into your guys' strengths a little bit? I mean, obviously you've done testing on, long run, short run, qualifying pace. I mean, looking at this new pro show style of things. I mean, are are you confident going into it, or is it kind of like, okay, we need to work on this, we need to work on that?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to work hard and be smart and learn. But I think I'm pretty confident. I'm good on the long run. I think right now, as of now, we're stronger in the long run than the short run. We tend to struggle a little bit on the new tire, and then we're really strong on the race pace. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of a broader, more general look at the pro show in terms of karting itself. I'm kind of an outsider. I'm more of a general car racing guy. That's what I cover. And for me, the thing that I love about karting are especially the pro categories. And I personally, looking at it, think it's so great that the pro categories are going to get their own dedicated segment. I think that's good for the entertainment value. I think that's good for you guys because you guys get a 2 hour show format. But as a driver, how important is that for you to showcase your talents in a kind of a pro format like that?
Yeah, I think it's important because I mean we're gonna be more in the spotlight now, so it's gonna be important to perform and to put on a good show for all the people watching. And yeah, I think it's just cool because it just separates a bit the pro drivers from the younger drivers, and the younger drivers will look up to us and want to be in that spot one day.
Yeah, and I've got to ask, we're going into the pro show. The idea is X30 and shifter kind of being the two main categories, but I want to know, when are we going to see Alisander Dulio running a shifter at some point? Because I know you mentioned it in passing in the past. I want to know, when are you going to hit up Carlos? When's the InterMS shifter deal going to happen for Ale?
It all depends. I think I'm honestly not sure. It's something that I've asked about before, but right now our focus is on X30 and the single speed stuff. But I've tested a couple times and I've enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. Um, but it's definitely something that takes a lot of laps, and especially the racecraft is quite different.
Hey, if you ran shifter, it's more money for you, man. I mean, let's talk about it a
Why
little bit, right? Because
is it?
that's what it's. Well, you get to run shifter as well. You get a chance to win both. I mean, it's
Both you mean?
it's more money if you go out
Uh,
there and race shifter. So you might be tired at the end. Maybe just a little bit, some weights there to get in the shifter as well. But let's talk about that, right? Because that's one of the big attention grabbers for people. Moving into senior, looking at the pro show and saying, what's this all about? A lot of money in the line. A lot of purse money, especially for the senior guys. I mean, is that an added incentive? And then is that something that's really, you know, is it adding pressure at all, knowing there's now a lot of money in the line, the most we've ever seen in karting?
yeah, obviously, I mean, money's nice, so that'll that'll be more exciting. It'll be more I don't know how to say it. Like there will be more attention. Obviously, drivers are gonna want to push more when they see the money. So yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
And speaking of money, I don't know if you've mentioned it yet, so I'm just gonna ask. Um, we got the Norberg Invitational going on. I mean, are you excited for that? I mean, where's your head at going into that? Because there's money on the line for that too.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, especially the engine Ryan chose or whoever chose it. That's a good choice because the Ks are pretty close one to another, and the format is also really cool. It's like I don't know if it was Need for Speed or some game. Like when you start getting knocked out, like every I don't know 10 minutes or something, the last five get knocked out. That's pretty cool. That's gonna
Australian
be fun.
Pursuit. Have you
Yeah,
ever driven?
that.
Have you ever driven Australian Pursuit before,
I
or is
don't know,
this?
but I remember driving something that I don't know if it was Gran Turismo, Need for Speed. I don't know what it was, but it's cool.
Yeah,
I remember I used to like on the game. I used to send it 10 cars back
full.
just because I was gonna eliminate it.
Gotcha.
So
You
that's
get
gonna be fun, huh?
you get down to
You-
3 seconds left, just full sends.
Yeah.
Oh
Cut the
man,
track and then.
yeah.
Okay,
Hey,
maybe I
now
should
we
be
know.
quiet because I'm gonna
Yeah,
Now,
get
yeah. Don't
penalized.
give it all away. Don't
I'm
give it
gonna
yeah,
all
get
away.
penalized.
now
I'm
we
gonna
know
get
where
penalized before I
Know
get
where
there.
Ollie learned. Now we know where Ollie learned to drive.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I was gonna say we're gonna send this clip to Ryan, have some have some drivers meeting notes. But no, I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, you get kind of that one weekend in Orlando before. I mean, I'm sure you guys have done a good amount of testing in the past in Orlando with various different teams. But I mean, what are your expectations for that event when it comes to racing in a KA against guys that have a wide variety of experience in that sort of discipline of racing? I mean, you've got Danny racing in KA, which is gonna be crazy. Then you've got guys like Ryan as well, and then you have guys that are literally coming from within a year of running KA full time, like adult. And like, I mean, how do you expect the racecraft to go with that one with the money also on the line?
I mean, looking at the driver lineup, it's pretty insane. It's like high level, and there's some drivers that I haven't seen in a K before. But I mean, you have Danny, which is a great driver and a shifter, and he did K and was
I'm
it
Grams.
Grandnats? Yeah, and he
Yeah.
was fast enough to win. I think he even won one of the races. So, and like I said, the Ks are much closer one to another. So I think it's going to be insanely close and a lot of fun. I'm excited for
Are,
that.
is there a different approach racing? Because I know K and X30, there's a bit of a different driving style, but especially at a track like Orlando, which is less reliant on straightaway speed and more on how aggressive you can be attacking the racetrack. Is being on a K compared to an X30 different around that place?
I haven't driven K in Orlando yet, but for example, in Homestead, when I switched from K to X30, there was some things that you have to change, just because K is less powerful. But yeah, I think Orlando. Honestly, I won't know until I drive, but if there's things to change, it's very minor.
Are we ever going to see the Dulio Invitational one day?
Yeah, maybe one day. I don't know. That'll be in
Yeah,
10 years.
yeah. I was gonna
Well,
say,
also another thing I was gonna mention that I find really cool is the age requirement. It's a bit lowered. It's like 13 or
Yeah, it's
12.
13.
13.
So that's also really cool because you have junior drivers that can, or even maybe mini. No, junior drivers that can register. So no, not mini, but junior drivers that can register that are
That'd be
also
quite a
fast.
show.
So, but it would
I
be
would.
cool. Like obviously, I
Oh,
wanna if I would want to win, but it would be cool to see one of like the junior drivers just beat us all.
I
What
would
kind
pay.
of
It'd be crazy.
I would pay to see. You mentioned mini. It's not. It wouldn't happen. But a mini versus like Danny Formal. I
Exactly.
would.
That's what I want to
I
see.
I would
And then
pay.
and then the mini driver wins, and then it would be
I
that
was
would
gonna
be
say,
cool.
I don't know if he's in the U.S. right now. He probably isn't. But
Palacio.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's
if Lucas, I mean, coming off a WSK win, if he comes off, run the Norberg Invitational, make an exception for the 9-year-old. I think it would.
always
I
nine.
don't. Yeah, he would need probably 110 pounds on the cart, but could happen.
But they'll be fast. Like I've seen True Show in a K. He's fast in a K, and he's like 10.
Yeah.
Simone as well. So I think the younger drivers will be quick because it's not what I see in the K is like a cadet, but a little bit more powerful and in a big chassis.
Yeah, it's definitely a good transition ground. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, you're going into that event, you have kind of all the money on the line, all the pro drivers. You'll get to kind of sit and watch the kind of showdown before it to see who makes the field
On
with you.
Friday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, atmosphere wise, it's certainly going to be something new for you. But when it comes to actual like pure racecraft, we have the Pro Tour Round One in Orlando coming up. It's a track that I think, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you've had a good amount of success at Orlando in various different disciplines. So, I mean, where's your mindset as it comes to kind of, I guess we've had the Homestead portion of the schedule. Now we're getting the Orlando portion of the schedule. Kind of what are your thoughts on Orlando as a track?
Yeah, I'm pretty strong in Orlando as well. It's a track that also suits my driving style quite a lot. So I'm excited that and it's also not far, so I don't have to travel for so long. And it races really well, so I think it'll be good. Like last year, the racing there was a lot of fun. I just hope I'm in the front this time.
Oh man, I kind of I didn't get a chance to ask you this. We talked about you switching to Inter MS, but what was last year like as a whole? Because you had a lot of success. Your first year, senior, you start out last year, you switch to Prime, you switch to Inter MS. You were a journeyman last year, and like you mentioned, you were never really comfortable. What was that? What was last year like for you as a driver? I mean, was there any loss of confidence or any sort of you know didn't know where you were gonna be from one day to the next? I mean, was that kind of an eye opener to you in the racing world? And it kind of what were your thoughts like throughout the whole year?
Yeah, it was something new to me. To be honest, I've never been that driver to like switch teams a lot. My whole career, I've always, stuck with a team for a while. Just last year was the only year I switched quite quick from one team to another. I think it was just something I needed. Something, yeah, pretty much something I needed, and I knew it was gonna be for the best. And yeah, you've seen it's going well.
What was what was the selling point for you, right? Because like you mentioned, you switched teams multiple times. We talked about why you're a good fit for Inter MS, but what was the selling point to get you there in the first place?
What I mostly saw was just, with Inter MS was a team that wasn't huge at the time. They were still starting off, but I saw a lot of potential and a lot of great people in the team that all they wanted to do was win, and that's what I wanted. So I think, when I was introduced to the whole team, I really liked everyone there. And like I said, we all just clicked, and it started.
Yeah, and I have to ask you, I mean, we saw a bit of a soccer match, a friendly between Intermess and PSL over the last weekend. I mean, do you guys manage to beat them?
We did, and if Diego Mateos is watching, remember 2-1. Two or
So,
Oh,
Rafa
two.
as well. Rafa was mad. Diego's mechanic. He was actually a little bit. He was quite salty. But we're
Hey,
gonna we're gonna get. They want a rematch. So we'll get a rematch soon.
We got to
But
no,
broadcast it.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You have to broadcast it.
yeah, we'll go live early for you
No,
guys.
even
We need to do.
even I don't know his name, but the Brazilian guy from RPG. I think he's like the team manager there or something. He's cool, and he also joined us, but he also lost because he was on Brazil's side.
So
so if
it
there,
was it was two
well,
one. So you guys need to do the aggregate where it's like you start out in Orlando
Yeah,
2-1.
exactly. Like Champions
Yeah,
League semifinal. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, so if we had a World Cup style soccer match between the entire paddock, what other team do you think could give you guys the best challenge?
Car chaser.
Um,
No.
Sodi, maybe
KC Kingers.
Sodi. Harley actually is pretty good. I've like played with him a bit before. I think it was like at a Homestead local or something. We were both coaching. There was a ball there, and we just started messing around. He's not bad. So I think maybe Sodi. I haven't seen Dalton, but Harley's pretty good.
Dalton's good. Dalton's
Is
good.
he? Okay, then
Yeah.
Sodi. We'll do it with Sodi, and then I would have to think of other teams.
We got
We'll
it.
still beat them, but they'll give
We're
us they'll give
car
us a little bit
chasers.
of fight.
We're the final boss. So whoever
Exactly.
wins goes through us. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
was
you guys
gonna
will just slide tackle us, and then we won't be able to race the next day,
say,
like Rafa was doing to us. And he's
yeah.
huge too. I was scared. My knee was
Yeah.
hurting the next day.
Oh man. All right. So see now we have the Norberg Invitational coming up in 2 weeks. We're gonna have the KC Invitational soccer
KC
match,
World Cup final.
KC World Cup coming up sometime to be determined time. I'll have to run this through like 5 different people, but it's gonna happen.
I think
So
there's a video somewhere too. I think it was Kyle that took it.
yeah,
Yeah,
we said
Kyle. Yeah.
yeah, we
You guys
gotta
should post it. That way
yeah.
we can go in the comments and get at it with Diego and Mateus.
Get
I mean,
on
I
it,
know
Kyle.
They were
Come on.
they said my goal wasn't a goal, and it was the game winning goal. It was golazo.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Oh, man.
They left.
Kyle says he has it in 4K and it's going on Instagram tomorrow. So
Who?
breaking news.
Who?
Kyle's
Okay,
got
perfect. Yeah, there you're gonna see.
The public will give the verdicts, but
They will.
oh man, no,
Hey, Ale, you know Drayton, right? Ale,
Who?
Drayton from us from Carchester. You probably
Social
got
media
interviewed
guy.
by Drayton. Yeah. Well, either
Maybe.
way,
I'm not great
Kyle,
with names.
Kyle put in the chat that Drayton's gonna lock you up, and I like that bet. So,
Why?
oh,
Lock me up like in the game.
yeah,
yeah.
it's free. We just got we got too many
I'll
big guys
make
on our team.
KC
We
money
got, we
line.
got I'm taking the over.
That's the thing. You guys are gonna have a good goalie.
Oh man,
I'll be the goalie.
we get it.
You're too small for a goalie.
Whoa! Oh, we're throwing out
I-
fighting words now.
I didn't mean it like that.
Alex is gonna
You're good in
be
the cart. Like
he'll be good
small dress.
defense.
I'm never picking Dulio to win again.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, but every time you pick me, I win. So keep it.
Exactly.
Oh.
That last win of the year happened last week.
Exactly.
Oh man. Oh man. No. Thank you so much, Sally, for coming on. You have any final words?
No, not really. This was a lot of fun. So thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for your time, man. KC, the Invitational's coming up for soccer. Outstanding winner series from Alisander Dulio. He comes away with both the championship in KA Senior as well as X30 Pro. And he'll be looking to win the Norberg Invitational and get set for an outstanding regular season in 2024. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you guys. Have a good night and see you guys soon.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you
Ali.
so much. And
Violet.
as we get set for the rest of the show, I believe that we'll have a word from one of our partners.
Colin, I need a new 219 chain. I need a 77 toothbrush sprocket. I need some more chain lube, and I need it probably as soon as like tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, are you even listening? Like, we need this to run this weekend.
Want anything else?
What do you mean?
I already got it in the Car on Acceleration Kart Racing's online store, bro. All orders over $200 get free shipping.
Oh, throw in a set of tires.
Done.
Everything you need, all in one place and shipped to your door for free on orders of $200 or more. Exclusions apply. Shop AKR.com.
Welcome back to KC Grid Talk, sponsored by AKR.com. Get all of your karting needs and wants on their shop. They have a lot of excellent products, as Kyle showed in that commercial. And I have to say, I mean, for a company that talks exclusively about soccer, we sure have a lot of kart racing from Miami to talk about. So we just heard from Alisander Dulio, the star of the weekend, the winner of both the KA Senior and the X30 Pro categories. But X30 Pro, the big story of the weekend, him against Donovan Bonilla, against Ryan Norberg coming into that last race. Dulio, with the help of his Kart Republic teammates or maybe not teammates, but certainly stable supporters in Brandon Carr and Thomas Navu, able to come away with a 1-2-3 for the KRs. Alex, as you watched that race unfold, you saw Brandon Carr come away with a maiden win in the U.S. national scene, and Ali come away with the championship. What were your thoughts about that race?
I mean, it unfolded perfectly for those guys, right? I mean, going into that race, it was Dulio versus Bonilla. Norberg is a little bit far back. He could still win it with a win, obviously, but he needed a little bit more to happen, right? So that championship was in the hands of Bonilla. Actually, going to that final, obviously got pushed to the wayside there. So then it became a Dulio versus Norberg situation, and the cards couldn't have unfolded better for him, right? I mean, we had Carr, Thomas, and we had Dulio, 3 card publics, line astern, Dulio in the middle, right? He had a guy in front and a guy behind him. And the fast guy on the racetrack chasing him down. That was one of the most impressive drives to a non-podium that I've seen in a while, right? He didn't make up 30 spots, but there was a part in that race where the first 7 laps consistently 3 to 5 tenths faster than the field for Norberg. And I mean, if that race was 3 laps longer, I think we're talking about Norberg as at least the winner of that race, or a good shot at it. He was unbelievable. Um, and this is not taking anything away from what we saw from the Car Public guys, but just Norberg had another step on those guys in that race. So they were lucky that you know, he had to avoid Benia off track. He had a few obstacles to go through in that race. Dalton did a great job letting him by and then working with him there. So overall, I mean, that was a stellar way to end the championship fight. Couldn't have asked for a better, more, rewarding finish, right? It was two deserving guys. Brandon Carr finally getting the X30 Senior Pro win, and Dulio getting that championship. I mean, it was cool to watch. The scenes were awesome. Unfortunate for Ryan, right? Because Ryan's probably going to walk away from this weekend thinking Donovan had him for most of the weekend, but in that one, it's probably a tough pill to swallow. Looking at the lap times and saying, "Wow!" I mean, it was just purple after purple. But ultimately, this is such a cool story for Car Public, for Inter MS. Like I mentioned in the interview, before he got there, right? They weren't, they weren't one of the upper echelon teams. Now they can, cement their name in sort of this elite group of, we can go out there and win against the big guys. So yeah, just congrats ADT, congrats to Intermes, congrats Car Public.
Yeah, and I mean, let's talk a little bit because I feel like it gets a little bit underrated, but Santi Fernandez played a big part in the Kart Republic domination that we saw in that race. And the results won't necessarily show it, kind of faded back a bit, but early on in that race, his defensive driving and kind of, I guess, elite blocking, so to speak, kind of put Norberg and Dalton and the rest of the pack well behind the 8 ball. Like Norberg, when he passed Fernandez, had 4.5 seconds to make up, and he ended up passing Dalton along the way. Dalton let him by, kind of gave him a free one. If Fernandez doesn't block half as well, Norberg catches them with 4 or 5 to go, because Norberg, like you mentioned, was pulling 2 to 3 tenths on those top 3. And I think it reminded me a lot of a race that we had last year in Orlando at USPCast Orlando. I think Xander mentioned it on the broadcast as well, where you had Diego Contecha, Brandon Carr, as well as
Massimino.
Pauly, all 3 of them working together to push away from Norberg, Duke Meggi, and Mateus Morgado. And in their case, they simply ran out of, or they had too many laps. So it was 26 laps. So the 3 faster guys caught them and eventually passed them. But for me,
the problem with Orlando as well, and the difference, before you get back to what you were saying, the difference with that, and as you know, it was 3 teammates here at SKUSA versus Orlando, where they were passing quite often and kind of hurt themselves a little bit. Whereas here, you kind of knew, you looked at the top 3 and said they're never going to pass each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were differences for sure, and I mean, I could go back and give a 20-minute speech about that whole race, because if you ever want to find, in my opinion, the best non one-off X30 race of last year, USPCS Orlando, the final in X30 is one of the best races I've ever watched.
I agree.
And it had Duke Meggi coming from 11th to 1st, Norberg having to go from, I think it was 20th to 2nd, or 20th to 3rd. Morgado had to run to 2nd on track. There was a lot of storylines from that one. Diego Contecho leading laps. You had Brandon Carr in the mix, Aiden Ingrata, Pauly. It was an instant classic. But for the purpose of Homestead, the way more prevalent race at the moment, I mean, those top 3 working together kind of shielded away from Norberg. And David, I mean, you get into this race, and over the course of the weekend, Donovan Benia and Ryan Norberg seemed like they had the pace to win both days, had the fastest carts, in my opinion, throughout the whole weekend. What do you think kind of kept them from pulling it off over the course of the entire weekend and the championship as a whole?
Well, it was pretty obvious, right? It was getting in trouble. I mean, Ryan Norberg had a pretty disastrous Saturday, and I think that cost him quite a bit. And Benia obviously had the struggles on the start on Sunday. To your guys' point about the Kart Republic, and we talked about it in the ADT interview. I mean, I kind of look at it like this. It was, the Daytona 500 is this week, right? And it's almost like when you see the Toyota teams get together. Yeah, maybe Joe Gibbs and 2311 aren't teammates, but they know what their manufacturer affiliation was. And, we were talking about it in the booth as it was happening. When ADT was in between 2 Kart Republics, whether they were from Trinity or anyone else, it was going to be that those drivers were going to stay in line until they saw Aaron Likens put up that 2 to go, if even then. So just a masterfully executed race by Kart Republic and specifically Alisander Dulio. And, the RPG guys made mistakes. And ultimately, that's what cost them the championship. You can have all the pace in the world. And frankly, Ryan Norberg, I mean, the race I was most reminded of was his drive at Supernats. Kind of a similar situation where he was behind the 8 ball and just tore through the field. He just didn't end up having enough laps to get it done. But again, it was mistakes that cost RPG on track, by the way. It was those mistakes that cost them the championship. It wasn't raw pace. And so I think throughout the rest of the year, I'm very curious and intrigued to see the battle between the Kart Republics and the Rawlison Performance Group, because I really think that those are the two, by and large, strongest organizations.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, Donovan Bonilla had really good pace all day on Saturday. The quickest kart, walked away from the field in the Saturday main. You get to Sunday, he qualifies on the outside front row, and you kind of look at it and you're suddenly like, okay, like this is Dono's championship. He has all the pace in the world, all of the potential, gets caught up in a lap 1 incident on the outside of turn 2, and basically his chances of the championship were shot from there. But if you're looking at it from RPG's side of things, Alex, and you see the pace advantage that they were able to have over the course of the weekend, what can you take away from that heading into the regular season, heading into Orlando and beyond?
Confidence, right? I mean, we asked Ryan this after the race too. I mean, he was. I said, "What can you take away from it?" He goes, "Well, we still won," and that's the correct answer, right? At the end of the day, the takeaway is this team is still arguably the benchmark. Obviously, the guy, arguably the team that everyone's still chasing, but a lot of teams are making that jump up, right? We saw Ramos look really good. We saw Intermes win the championship, right? We've seen Sodi be strong. There's a lot of teams, right? Speed, even though Garrison didn't race this one, but we've seen a lot of teams be strong over the course of so far this year. But RPG still, to me, looks like the guys that everyone is lining up behind in practice, sort of thing. They were fast. Obviously, Ryan was the fastest guy there on Sunday, just out of laps. Who knows with Bonilla, right? If maybe Bonilla wins that race if he's not dumped in turn 2. But nonetheless, I mean, I think the takeaways are they're going to a track that they have been notoriously very strong at in Orlando. So I think they're holding their head high, right? And I think I expect nothing more than podiums and possible wins in their future here. And they showed it there with how strong they can be, right? I mean, Bonilla was quick, maybe quicker than Norberg at times. Norberg's fast, right? I mean, they have a great package over there, not only in senior, but in shifter as well. So overall, I think these guys can walk away feeling pretty good about, where their chassis and motor package is at going to Orlando.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we talked about this kind of in the opener when we were previewing rounds 1 and 2. Norberg had a lot of success last year from a pace standpoint. The wins didn't really follow. I think that could extend to RPG as a whole at times throughout the course of the season up until you got to the last couple of months. But now they've essentially been averaging 1 X30 Pro win a weekend for the last 4 or 5 national weekends. Like, they won this past weekend with Bonilla. They won the first set of rounds with Norberg. They won with Bonilla again in Supernats. They won with Hayden at the last round of Trackhouse. So consistently now they're getting wins and they're running at the front. And I think that that's a confidence builder. But for me, the star of the weekend, the guy that had the most gain in confidence has to be Brandon Carr. I know that he got a second in round 2. I know that he was up front in the rain, but let's face it, when you move to a new team in your first weekend, you struggle, and on dry pace he was closer to 10th or 15th than up to the front. For him to be able to get the monkey off his back and get the race win in round 4 against Dulio, against Norberg, pretty much on merit. Like, for me, Carr is the standout for me, and I mean, I want to hear from both of you guys, but on on that side of things, like I was a doubter. I did not think Brandon Carr was going to win. I said as much on Friday night. I was like, if Brandon Carr wins, like I'll be absolutely shocked. So, I mean, for him to pull it off on the dry, I was ultra impressed. I think it sets him up really well for Orlando as well.
You said it pretty well there, right? Because I think we actually spoke on this in our most recent podcast episode where we talked about Brandon Carr and we mentioned, listen, this is not a knock against him. What he needs to do, because when we were talking about the move to Trinity, he's going to have to clean it up, right? Because last year he started the year out really hot. There's a lull mid-season, right, where he just wasn't as quick. It was question marks and just what's going on with Brandon Carr, whatever it may be, and maybe too aggressive, not aggressive enough, right? Too many mistakes. He goes to Trinity, first weekend out, even with the growing pains that's going to happen being on a new team. He gets a second, right? Maybe you put an asterisk there because in the rain, but to me that's even less of a reason to put an asterisk because if you can be fast in the rain, you can be fast in the dry. And so yeah, Brandon Carr proved, and arguably he even mentioned that he missed a setup there in that rain race where they finished second. So we knew going into this one that he's quick in the rain. The question was, could he be quick on a dry race on merit? And he did exactly that, right? I mean, obviously with Bonilla getting pushed off and Norberg getting, blocked a little bit, it makes your life easier. But at the end of the day, you're still racing against Thomas Naveau and Dulio. Is two of the top guys in our class at the end of the day. And Ryan chasing him down, Dalton behind you as well. There's so many good guys in this class, and he went out there and on merit got the win. And you saw what it meant to him, right? You mentioned the celebrations. Right? I mean, this is something this kid's been waiting a long time to go out there and do. And so to get it done early on in the year, it sets him up to be trending in a very positive direction.
Yeah, Alex, I don't think you argue with winning, but I will point out a few things. And we talked about it, Brandon and I, in his post-race interview. It was a bit more of a Brandon Carr track than it would have been otherwise. I mean, you got your rain shower in the middle of the day, and it washed away a lot of the rubber. Track grip came down a little bit. So that was good for Brandon Carr. That definitely, the track conditions helped him a little bit. There was some water in the curbs, made the track a little bit more unpredictable. Not quite, certainly not a wet race, but definitely not a super gripped up dry race either. And I think the other thing that really helped him was the same thing that helped Dulio, was the fact that those Kart Republics weren't going to race each other until the very end of the race. They wanted to make it about them. And ADT, again, also admitted in our post-race interview, he wasn't necessarily trying to win that race, right? Like, he wasn't going to throw it all on the line because he wanted to win the championship. Now, I say all that because I don't want to take away anything from Brandon Carr, but I think it definitely was a race that played into Brandon Carr's strengths as a driver. But to your guys' point, what I think is really good for Brandon is the fact that he got a race that played completely into his strengths, because like you mentioned, now that he's broken through winning early on with a new team, now he can focus and have the confidence to know that he can do it and kind of fix some of those issues that he has when the conditions are not Brandon Carr conditions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's also now heading into a track, and then I'll get to you, Emory, here in a second. But just to piggyback on what you said, David, right? To get it done early, confidence levels are up. Whether the track conditions were in his favor or not, actually, I don't think they were that different, right? It was a pretty green racetrack, but in terms of overall grip levels, I mean, I talked to Ryan about it after as well. He said it wasn't that much different. And I mean, obviously, he's going to say that because he was the fastest guy on the racetrack, right? So to him, maybe the grip levels, were good.
It might be that go-kart he's got underneath him.
They nailed it. They nailed the setup, right? So for him, it wasn't as bad as the other guy, whoever it may be. But going down to a track like Orlando, where like Emory and I talked about earlier, he's quick, right? I mean, in last year, he had a chance to win at Orlando in one of his debut senior races. Right, so now he's grown, I'd say, in the past year as a driver, mentally, on track, off track. He's grown tremendously. A level of maturity has definitely struck him in a positive direction on track. And so I'm excited to see what he can do on that KR, heading into Orlando for sure, Emory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it should be noted that last year Orlando was one of his strongest tracks, and it should also be noted that he's headed to a place that last year Joe Turney was really good on the KR. Granted, Joe Turney was good everywhere, but in Orlando in particular at Pro Tour, he was able to put 2 tenths on the field at certain points, and then on Sunday with a bin up kart was still the fastest one. So I think, I mean, the blueprint for how the KR is fast in Orlando has been demonstrated by Turney, it's been demonstrated by others, and I think like there's all the reason to be confident for Brandon Carr. And for me personally, like it made me happy to see him finally kind of get that big win off his chest because it's been a year of up and downs. We've seen him run up front at OKN, and we've seen him run in podium contention at different races. But I mean, getting that last step, getting that final step onto the top step of the podium with a new team, when the first couple races he struggled a little bit on dry conditions, like even with it kind of playing to his strengths, David, I still think that it's a huge deal for Carr to get that one and finally kind of show the Brendan Carr that we've sort of been waiting to see a little bit and see him put it all together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean we talked about it in the very first episode of this podcast, right? Him going to Kart Republic and being one of the lead drivers for Trinity, that's not insignificant. He's on that team for a reason because they see the potential in him and they saw what he proved this weekend play out. So yeah, I mean it's going to come. It's just I think the storyline here is it came so early. That's the real storyline here.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, again, karting's one of those things you run a weekend, you have a lot of testing that goes into it. But for him to show up second weekend, get a race win on his new team, I think that it sets him up well. And Alex, I mean, I'm curious to hear what does this mean for Trinity as an organization? Because they've had a good stretch of races. They've won with Joe when he was under their tent. They've had a handful of good races, but for them to bring in Carr and instantly show success, I mean, it has to have good good ramifications for Sean and the rest of that team, no?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, right? Well, for one, for them to be the KR team here in North America, right, already puts a target on their head, good or bad, right? But in terms of, and we spoke about this earlier, drivers wanting to go to that team, now that they are, basically the KR, the factory team here in the States, right? All of a sudden, drivers want to go over there and race for them. And when you have a guy like Brandon Carr who's winning, right? It plays into your hands pretty well, and they have a really good cadet program as well. So that team is not only were they already strong, right, but now they seem to be on this trajectory of just up and up and up, right? And I can see this being one of the powerhouses, right? I think this is going to be one of the best years that we've seen in karting in a long time. Last year was pretty good, but this year, with how many powerhouse teams there are, how many good drivers are on different teams. There's not one team that's just stacked the cards in their favor. There are so many guys that at least have one really, really just an alien of a driver, right? And so it's gonna be a great year for karting, and I'm excited, right? I mean, another team that we've spoke about, right, in terms of building themselves into this, elite level caliber of a team, and have already exceeded that, right, is Sodi. And I want to talk about them for a little bit because, again, one of those weekends where you come away from it and it's like, man, I expected maybe more, because with the pace that they show in practice, pace that they show in warm up, pace they show in qualifying, sometimes even the pre-final. But when it comes to the final, right? I mean, I know Dalton walked away with a handful of top fives, but
Keeble got a second.
like you still look at it, right, and it's like they were strong, but there's still points in that in those races where it's like either they're involved in trouble, or their long run pace isn't there, right? The Saturday race, to me, Keeble was the fastest guy there, right? If Keeble didn't have a bad opening couple of laps there, Keeble probably would have won that race. But I think on the Sunday it was a complete flip, right? Pre-final went well for him. Final really wasn't there.
Yeah.
But overall, right, it's just it seems a little too wish-washy, and that's gonna be the thing that they're gonna take away from this weekend is they are clearly fast, right? Dalton was incredibly fast in that pre-final. The final wasn't as quick. But considering the Saturday race, Dalton was, outside the top 15. And then he goes into Sunday and he's top 5. And it's kind of the same deal for Harley. Harley qualified 17th on Sunday or whatever it was. So there's still things that they can look back and say, like you mentioned, second on Saturday, what happened Sunday? For Dalton, 18th one day, 5th the other day. So they need to be able to dial that into let's be a consistent top 5 team. That's how you win races.
Well, and I think with both of them, for me, I actually had the opposite. I thought that I was pretty encouraged with what I saw this weekend. For the fact that Keeble was able to come away with a second on Saturday, and if it wasn't really for a little bit of a mid-race scuffle between him, Dalton, and Norberg, you have to say there's a good chance he's able to run down Bonilla and get that race win, right? For Dalton, the final result on Saturday won't show it, but he was running top 5 or 6 on track. I believe he finished higher on track and then got a penalty that kind of changed the course of that race for him. But when you look at how he did over the course of the weekend, he was consistently up in the top 8. And I feel like he learned a lot from Saturday and kind of toned it down a little bit on the blocking and sort of had a good weekend. And on Keeble's side, Sunday kind of got up and caught up in some scuffles. But to be fair, Sunday's qualifying where you had the track kind of fall away for that first group sort of caught a lot of guys off. Keeble wasn't the only one. We saw Diego Ramos qualify poorly. We saw Blake Nash qualify poorly. So for me, I look at that and I'm like, for the first round of the season, Sodi looked kind of disappointing. They didn't quite get the pace that they needed to. This last weekend, they finally strung together some good pace in the actual race days. And to me, at least, they looked like a team that is going to be contending up at the front and has the good chance to get some race wins. It sucks to not get that final result, but still to be in the top 5, have 2 carts in the top 6 for a lot of the weekend. There's a lot to build off of that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, Emory. I mean, I think we do. This is a thing that we do in the media a lot of the times. Is we look at things on paper, right? We say, "Wow, Harley Keeble's really fast, and Dalton Haynes is really fast, and Sodi's investing all this money in the U.S." And we say that's going to be a winning, right out of the box winning organization. But you have to think that Harley Keeble is in year 2 here in the States. Dalton Haynes is in race 4 with Sodi. Our expectations are extremely high because we know what their ceiling is. But I think we also have to take into account that this team is so young, especially when you compare it to Norberg and RPG, or even, you can look at ADT and Inter MS. They have much more experience together than certainly Dalton and Sodi do. So, Emory, you're absolutely right, in my opinion. I mean, this weekend was very, very encouraging for Sodi Kart. Yeah, they're not winning right out of the box, right? We're not saying, yeah, we believe the hype right now. But I think it's going to come. I think once that team gels, they're going to be right there. It's just going to take a little bit of time and a few more laps and a little bit more seat time, and they're going to be right there. And you mentioned it too. I mean, we expected a lot of the chaos, right? We were expecting them to mix it up, bang tires, block guys. But, to your point, Emory, throughout the weekend, that started to kind of work its way out of the game plan. And I think as we see the season progress, we're just going to see Haynes and Keeble mature and work into their roles as true front runners in this class.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's a process, and Keeble himself got into some scuffles on Sunday. I think both of them are kind of more on the aggressive side of the spectrum when it comes to racing at the front of the field. But I mean, racing Pro X30 is tough. There's a lot of fast guys, and like plain and simple, Ale mentioned it when he was on in the interview. They felt like RPG had a 10th on the field, and when both Norberg and Bonilla are up there, Dulio is firing on all cylinders at a track that, let's face it, is his home track. As much as he might say, "Well, I don't run that much anymore." Well, you don't suddenly forget how to drive a track. So I think he has the experience advantage on Homestead there. You had Kart Republic firing on all cylinders. Like, the guys that you're having to beat are good too. They have experience. They have a lot of good pace. So, I mean, for me, you're not going to be able to win every single one of those races, but to be in the fight, to be in that situation where now you can look back and be like, oh, if this and this changed just a little bit differently, we could have been the ones getting the win. For me, I look at that like that's a positive for Sodi. At the end of the day, winter series wise, they were out of both championship discussions. So for them to be able to put a couple solid results on the table, I mean, it's encouraging. Not going to be perfect. You're not going to win every race, but it was a solid rebound to what was a disappointing round 1 and 2, in my opinion.
To my point, right? Because I agree with you guys. I was answering more the question of how do I rate their weekend? But if you actually think about it, right? And this is I mean I picked Sodi to go out there and win the Pro Tour earlier this year. I mean that's still my pick. But for them to go out there and do that, right, with Pro Show coming up, less mistakes are allowed to be made. And so for me, that was my knock, right? Is like you have two of the most talented drivers on the grid, and you basically flip qualifying positions, right? In terms of one, you're in the top 5, and then you're outside the top 15 in one, right? So if you do that in the Pro Show, I mean, you're not done, right? But all of a sudden, you don't have the extra race or two to go out there and help, right? Because now with the Pro Show, it's pre-final, final. It's not really, you're not going to have 2 days of racing, right? So it's one of those things where you can't really save your championship as easily. And so that was my deal. It's kind of like these guys, with how good they are, I want to see them, refine it, like the RPGs of the world, like Trinity, like all those guys, right? And they're going to get there. And for Sodi as well, because you mentioned, David, about how they're still a new team. For me, I mean, Harley at this point has developed himself to be, I mean, one of the top premier talents in the senior class, and Dalton as well. And so for Dalton to be as quick as he was, again, and this is something that we expected because Dalton has driven every chassis under the sun at one point in his career. So we didn't expect him to have any struggle on the Sodi. But he was quick, and at times you looked at the times, and you kind of spoke to Dalton and Harley, and it's like Dalton might have been faster than Harley at points in this one. So I think we have like an in-team rivalry brewing. They're both buddies. We also the Lego video, but
I don't know. That got pretty heated.
I was going to say.
But you can see the chemistry they have. And so that's what I'm excited for. But I want to see these guys really go out there and be consistent, because that's how they're going to go out there and win championships, like I think they can do.
Yeah, and I mean, they have all the potential in the world. They're kind of two of the most exciting drivers that you're going to see on the grid. I think both of them kind of race in a style that makes it more entertaining. And I mean, I have to give credit to both of them, honestly. Like, for me, Harley has kind of been able to change his approach at different times. He still has his points where he gets a little bit caught up in some instances, but he's capable of putting in composed drives. I felt like his ability to handle Dalton, of all people, blocking him on Saturday and kind of keep his composure there, and then kind of fight his way through that second pack of like Terlecki and Ramos and that group and Pauly, and get himself up to second. Like, he was able to catch Mania. That was a bad thing. But, maybe that's something where younger Harley Keeble would have imploded a little bit, right? And on Dalton's side of things, we saw Saturday him block his teammate, caught some heat for that. But after that, on Sunday, he put in one of the more composed drives we've seen from him, let Norbert go in the perfect spot, which I was talking to him a little bit post-race. His ability to recognize how much quicker Norberg was and know when on the track would be the best time to let him go and only lose about a tenth or two from that swap and then pick up the pace after following him. Like, that's really high IQ stuff. And I think that it shows, like, as much as Dalton might have kind of some of those over aggressive moments, his ability to kind of get himself into that sort of right mental zone and kind of stay composed, stay like grounded a little bit, and not try to throw too many blocks for Norberg, let him go, tag along with him, and get back towards the front group. It was a really mature decision from him. And I think that in general, with both of these guys, if they want to win the Pro Tour, they have to kind of see the bigger picture, right? As much as the Pro Show is going to bring in the aggressiveness and trying to get the money, you have to see the ultimate goal of winning the championship. And this weekend, process-wise, showed a lot of good things for both of them. And I think they had a rebound weekend. Another guy that had a good rebound weekend was Diego Ramos of PSL. Again, the results maybe not as good as he would have wanted to, but he was able to get himself into a good spot on Saturday. And then on Sunday, kind of drove through the field right behind Norberg and came away with, I believe, 6th at the final results. So a good result for Ramos to kind of tag along and really kind of get himself back on track after what was a really difficult round 1 and 2 in Winter Series, Alex.
Yeah, Ramos is one of those guys. To me, Ramos and Pauly are two guys that are going to come away from this weekend with not enough credit. Because both those guys, I think, had really quiet, good weekends. I mean, Pauly, for one, got turned around in the pre-final, drove back through in the final, had a couple of top tens for a guy that, it doesn't really drive as often, right, as some of these other guys. So for Pauly, I was impressed with Pauly and Ramos, right? I think, again, this leads off of the confidence thing that we mentioned, coming off of Orlando, winning finally for PSL, finally for the first time in a long time in the senior class, builds, right? And so he headed into Saturday very quick. Sunday, drove through the field to a P6, right? It was an underrated drive for him. And I'm happy for him, and I know he's happy. You can see he's walking around with a constant smile on his face, right? He almost wanted to get interviewed so many times because he was up front, right, and having a good time. He fell in love with karting. So for him, super happy for him. Happy for Pauly. Two guys that I think quietly went under the radar and had good weekends.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
Alisander Dulio is the Patrick Mahomes of karting, then Pauly Massimino is definitely the Brock Purdy, I would say. I do want to say about Ramos is that there was a point in the weekend, and you guys know a lot more about karting than I do. You guys talked about the win the previous weekend and how that was going to build his confidence and get him up at the front. There was actually a point where I noticed there was a red cart in the lead group, and I was like, who's the red cart? I was like, oh, it's Ramos. Wow, he's up front, sort of thing. It was actually, and it's kind of surprising because Ramos has always been one of the guys we focused on quite a bit on Kart Chaser, and he hasn't really run up at the front as much as I think we kind of have expected him to do. But I guess Emory, talk a little bit about that confidence level rising, and it clearly worked this weekend. It clearly got him back up where he's supposed to be.
Nah, first off, dude, I gotta hear this whole Brock Purdy Pauly Massimino comparison because I can't wrap my I can't wrap my head around that. You gotta explain that first.
I mean, do you really want me to? You're gonna make me say the nickname, and now Pauly's never gonna talk to me again. But it's like, he's kind of like Mr. Irrelevant. No one talks about how good he is. No one talks about how he's always running up front, how he's got like one of the best finishing records in the entire. Like, no one ever talks about these. I've seen the stats. Kyle pointed to a stat book and said, "You need to talk about Pauly Massimino." I'm like, okay. He's like, if you want to look smart, talk about Pauly Massimino. I'm like, okay. So Kyle, this is your fault. But that's it. I mean, like, that's the thing about Pauly is like, he's not flashy. He's not with a flashy team, but he just puts in the work. He's like the blue collar racing driver out there. I mean, I think we should talk about him more. I think we should talk to him more. That's all I'm saying.
Nah, I think Mr. Irrelevant is whoever gets picked last in the KC football team draft,
That'll
soccer
be me.
team draft.
That'll be me.
So
That'll be me.
I think that might be a little bit more of a relevant comparison. I mean, no, your general point. I mean, Pauly has gone a bit under the radar, and I think like his ability to put a couple of good results together this weekend. He was inside the top 8 all weekend, and again, like you mentioned, like Ramos kind of falling back in love, so to speak, with karting. I think that we're seeing a little bit more of Pauly kind of showing more energy, so to speak, a little bit more like I guess optimism about his current state. Like we saw last year after switching to VJR, it kind of seemed like business wise, like everything was going well. Like he has a really good relationship with Brandon, but result wise, it kind of fell off a little bit from Speed Concepts. I think now we're seeing with their package developing, we've seen some good results. I think he's heading to a couple of tracks in the first 3 months of the pro calendar, whether it be Orlando or USPCAS at Trackhouse, that are going to be Pauly tracks. So for him to get a good result this weekend was good. I don't see the Brock Purdy comparison personally, but teach their own. But Alex, you mentioned in our private chat just a second ago, Tom Brady is Ryan Norberg. I don't think this, but considering his Super Bowl prediction video, Donovan Bonilla had a little bit of Mahomes in him this weekend. Who do you think Diego Ramos is, and how does this shape up for him for the rest of the season?
Diego Ramos is it's got to be Drew Brees, right? I mean, super, reliable, a guy that Drew Brees never won the MVP, right? And for me, Ramos is one of those guys where maybe he doesn't get his flowers as much as he deserves. And so for him to go out there and get that, that monkey off his back after so many years of not so many years, but so many races not winning in the senior class, first one for PSL. For me, he deserves more credit than he gets. And like you mentioned, David, I mean, it's one of those things. You saw the red card out front. It's like, oh, it's Ramos. I mean, it's for a moment there, it was like, man, I can get used to seeing this again, right? I can get used to seeing Ramos back where he belongs at the front. And so, like I mentioned, right, one of those things where you speak to him. Anybody who was at Homestead can attest to this, right? And you saw Ramos, and he was constantly happy, enjoying himself. He wasn't walking around, oh yeah, I don't know, we need this, need this. It wasn't really any of that. It was tire pressures. That's it, right? Like they seem comfortable with the stage of that chassis, that motor package. And then heading into Orlando, a track that he just won at on a different motor package, but I'm sure he's riding this wave of momentum pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Diego, a good recovery from him. I think it's a good sign of things to come when you can have a track and a layout that he wasn't great at last year, and an engine package that they struggle with so far this year. And he wasn't, to me, he was honestly Mr. Irrelevant, so to speak, in this weekend. Now that we've got the Brock Purdy talk going, in the sense that we didn't hear a whole lot of Diego. Like even his good races, right? Like the pre-final final on Saturday, he wasn't really the main ones that were being covered. It was Bonilla pulling away. It was the scrap that was going on between Navu and with Norberg. It was kind of Terlecki and his pace and kind of being a little bit of an upstart in that sense. Diego just kind of had a solid workmanlike day on Sunday, and he put it together. But on the flip side of the PSL banner, I mean, we've got to talk about Mateus Morgado and the outstanding run that he had in Shifter to come away with 2 wins, a Winter Series championship, and a whole lot of confidence coming into his first full season aboard the Burrell Art PSL karting Shifter in the pro side of things. We'll talk about that coming up next, but first, a word from AKR.
So you finally want to get behind the wheel, huh?
Yeah, I've been shooting for 3 years and I've never got to drive.
Well, you're going to need some more gear than just your helmet. Why don't you go to shopakr.com. They got their inventory online and they'll ship it the same day if you order before 5:30 p.m. Eastern.
They got shoes?
Yep.
Gloves?
Yep.
Rip protectors?
Got those too.
Can they make me go fast?
No.
Here at Acceleration Kart Racing, we've got everything you need to get on track. What happens next? Well, that's on you. Check us out online at shopakr.com.
I think that voiceover guy needs a raise. That was really excellent voice work right there.
Quality tier content. Anyways, we get back into it. We're talking about the shifter category. Mateus Morgado. Mateus, the guy that David and I did not pick to win. Alex, you got it one right again, somehow, some way. I mean, what did you tell Mateus coming in the weekend that made him go so fast?
I mean, for me, I think Mateus was the most impressive guy last race weekend, rounds 1 and 2. I walked away from that, and that's exactly why I picked him for this weekend, because you could tell this is a guy like, he ran KZ2 over in Europe, and that's pretty much the comparison here to the States, but he didn't race all that many. It was 3 races I think in Europe, right? Versus Isambard, who lives at that track, Danny Formal, who is, I mean, in my opinion, he's still the benchmark guy in Shifter. You have, last month it was Bailiff, who's now, holding his own in Shifter, right? You have Saraceno, Becklin, Giorgio Carrara this past weekend. So for me, it's one of those things where I went into this weekend thinking, listen, if they can go out there and find a 10th, find 2 10ths, which a world-class guy like Morgado can do, he's got a shot here. And the takeaway from this weekend, and kind of when I talked to a lot of the Shifter guys, what happened was, and the answer is kind of a head scratcher, right? PSL and Morgado didn't really find any lap time, right? Like if you really compare it, driver to driver, didn't really find all that much pace. But the guys around him seem to have maybe lost a tenth or two this weekend. I don't know if this layout just suits those Braille guys better or what it may be, but a lot of the guys were telling me, listen, we don't really know. Like I talked to PSL and those guys, they really didn't know where this pace came from because they didn't really find anything from January to February. It was more just the guys around them seemed to have lost a bit of their steps. So for me, Morgado was impressive. I mean, Formal was frustrated for most of this one, right? He had moments of like, okay, we found the problem, didn't find it. We found it. Oh no, another problem. And so for him, after that pre-final on Sunday, especially, right, he came to us and was like, "Yeah, we're gonna win this race," and the exact opposite happened. I was like, right, he got to the lead, and then Morgado, one of the best moves I've seen in a while, and then pulled away by an excess of 10 seconds, I think it was. So, I mean, that was a statement race from Mateus. Danny's gonna go back to the drawing board a little bit. I mean, we know something was wrong because Danny Formal has never been beat by 10 seconds in his life. So. And that being said, he was beat by 10 seconds to finish second place to show you how dominant Morgado was, right? And that was like a Verstappen level, just check out, no TV time at all because you're so far ahead type of win. So impressive from him. Excited for us as a broadcast crew to go into the Pro Tour with a whole bunch of names that we know, like GFC, Magic, they're back. So this is going to be an exciting Pro Tour for sure. But yeah, back to the Mateus point. Impressive, scary for the shifter guys around him because he is still learning, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, David, I want to talk about that pass that Mateus did because let's be honest, did not see really any passes in that chicane the whole entire weekend. And Mateus Morgado pulls one out in the final with a championship on the line, mind. You know, granted, like there's some discussion about how important a Winter Series champion is, but as a racing driver, if there's a trophy, if there's a championship, if there's a distinction of a championship, you're going to go for it. Doesn't matter if there's 2 guys you're racing against or 35. So, I mean, David, what were your thoughts on Mateus's racecraft and his ability to pull that one out of his hat?
I mean, it was a great looking pass, wasn't it? I mean, just absolutely beautiful. You know, the little bit of a weave and then the commit in a spot on the track, like you mentioned, where we really saw zero passing, especially not for the lead. So Morgado was just on another planet this weekend. There's no doubt about it. And you know, you mentioned about how much the championship means, or maybe it doesn't mean. I can tell you it meant a lot to Danny, and he was pretty upset to lose it because there was a mood change with Danny. I think he knew pretty early on in the weekend that he was beaten for whatever reason. I think in our post race interview he mentioned engine. I'm kind of curious. Maybe you guys who know a little bit more about karting can kind of elaborate on exactly what that might have been that Morgado had an advantage in engine over Danny. But Mateus Morgado has impressed me significantly. I mean, to see his progression over the course of the Winter Series has just been, simply put, amazing. Because you know we kind of talked about going into Winter Series. You know, how is he going to adapt to shifter kart racing in the U.S.? How quick was it going to be for him to get a win? How was he going to adapt racing against guys he hasn't raced against before? There were still a few mistakes. His starts weren't nearly as good as his competitors. I think that's an area that he's going to have to work on. But the start really doesn't matter when you've got 10 seconds on the field, right? So, yeah, I mean, Mateus Morgado, and you could just see the confidence in him all weekend. I mean, he just kind of knew that he was ready to go and he was going to win it. And yeah, I don't know what PSL did, and apparently they don't know either. But you know, sometimes with conditions or changing the track, the only thing I could speculate on is that sometimes not changing things is the best way to go to the front, because sometimes you can outthink yourself in racing, and maybe PSL just simply didn't outthink themselves.
Alex, I got a question for you. When was the last time someone was that dominant in a shifter field that we've been covering, like a car chaser broadcast?
Is this a trick question? Do you know the answer to this?
I do know the answer to this.
I'm gonna take a guess and say Danny Formal. I don't know which race. I'm just gonna say Formal.
Nah, it was last year in Orlando at a winter tour,
Was it
and we were
Musgrave?
no, it was Kremers. We were standing with the PSL boys up on
Oh, at Rock. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the good old Marian doing different tricks with
One-handed.
his hit. Yeah, going through turn 7 at Orlando with one hand off the wheel, doing various different emotes back to the crowd. So, I mean, this was actually their first win in shifter in, I guess, a big national race. Morgado did get the win in round 1 of winter tour this weekend. So, or this, I don't know why I said this weekend, last month at Florida Winter Tour. So another, like, for him to get a big win, I mean, you could argue it's the biggest race that Burrell Art has won in the U.S. and shifter, dating back to 2022 when Kremers dominated the Pro Tour. Because last year, Marian went winless on the Pro Tour side of things, managed to get the championship. USPK struggled to get wins. Winter Tour was able to win a couple, but then he gets to the 2 Vegas races and they just don't quite have the pace. So it's a huge win for Burrell and PSL. Yes, the competition, it was top heavy. There wasn't as much depth to the field as what you're going to expect in Orlando, but for Mateus to walk away from Danny Formal to that degree, and not just Formal, but Alan Isambar, Giorgio Carrar, those are guys that you're going to look at the Pro Tour, and especially if they were to come to Homestead, you're talking guys that would probably end up top 7 to 10 at those races. And for you to be able to walk 10 seconds to Formal, another few seconds back to the rest of the field, it's so impressive. And I mean, David, I have to say, Mateus Morgado, his transition to shifter, immediately coming on being a podium threat in round 1, now dominating the field in rounds 3 and 4. I mean, this has to set him up pretty well for Pro Tour.
Yeah. He's the guy with the target on his back now. There's no doubt about it. And I guess I hadn't remembered that, but your point is so well taken that, I can't remember the Belgian guy. I can't remember his name. Help me out, boys. Kremers.
He's Dutch. Don't
Dutch.
Oh, you're David.
Did it again.
We're not.
I hope Martin's watching. Oh no.
Hey, sorry, Martin. The Dutchman, Martin Kremers, the fact that he didn't win last year, right? Because we know Kremers is damn good, world champion, right? And the fact that a Burrell didn't win with a world champion behind the wheel last year, and now Morgado just comes out of the box and puts 10 seconds on Danny, I think that really says something about Morgado, right?
I mean, I can't get over it. I mean, Marian Kremers, if you're listening to this, we don't want to cause a civil war. Dutch, one of the best Dutch drivers in the world, alongside the likes of
he was from
Max
Belgium.
Verstappen.
Listen, I love street
Alex,
waffle, okay?
Alex, see, as of right now, we have to take none of the heat. Right? don't loop us into this. This is a Dave problem here.
Max, super, max, super, max. There we go.
Yeah, but no.
I'll wear orange next episode, okay?
I'm gonna hold you to it. No, if and when Marian comes back to the U.S., I'm gonna clip this and make sure that he sees this, just so.
Great.
Yes. Just for the content.
I'm gonna tell Marian to bring it up. Interview number 1.
Yeah.
That'll be good content.
Anyways, outside of misidentifying Marian Kremers' homeland, I have to say Mateus Morgado, like you mentioned, David, like it's a big win for him. It's a bigger win for the PSL guys, in my opinion. You come into Pro Tour, you have a guy who now is kind of the de facto, like, I don't want to say favorite, because I mean, there's a lot of guys that are going to come in that are going to be competitive up there. But to have a guy that you're confident in to be all the way at the front of the field, not that we didn't think Mateus Morgado wasn't a world-class driver, the 2022 world champion. And I mean, KZ2 last year was inside the top 10 for most of his starts in that. But for him to come over and absolutely smack the reigning Super NES champion like he did, like, I don't know. I was super impressed with Mateus. I was probably more impressed with his racecraft, honestly, than his pure pace, because his pass that he made, like I mentioned earlier, was sensational. He was really composed. He was able to white line when he needed to. was able to pull away when he needed to. He did everything he wanted to control the race. And Alex, I mean, that was a clinic from Mateus Morgado.
Here's the thing that it kind of just clicked in my head as well, right? Because last year, you mentioned Kremers won the Pro Tour Championship without winning a race. But you can argue, look back at that, and besides maybe Supernats, the Burrell, because he dominated Rock, the Burrell struggled the shifter side of things on the IAME package. They seem to be down slightly on power compared to his opponents. And so for Morgado to come in here in the Winter Series, because Kremers didn't race Winter Series, for Morgado to go in their Winter Series and dominate on the IAME package, it shows you. This is not me comparing Morgado to Kremers. This is me saying that Burrell has figured out that package. And so to go into the Pro Tour now with all of a sudden, the only thing different is the racetrack they're going to be driving on. And Orlando, is a track that Morgado is quick at, especially on the single speed side. Like you mentioned, Emory last year went from, I think, 15th to second. So super impressive from him this weekend. And, come Pro Tour time, like you mentioned, David, he's arguably the guy that they're all chasing, right? For me, it's still Danny because it's Orlando, and anytime you have Curbs and Danny, that's gonna be the guy to pick. But that Burrell looks like a rocket.
Yeah, there's only so much time you can make it. I mean, weren't we talking about curbs on the reverse layout of Miami too? And I mean, it didn't really help Danny all that much, right?
Orlando's a different breed, though.
That's true. I mean, some of the footage that I've seen from Car Chaser, some of the stuff that Kyle has showed me over the years. Just I look at Danny going over those curbs. I'm just like, how is his body just not like broken?
He's a tank.
I mean,
it's
unbelievable.
That is a football player driving go-karts. I mean,
American football player. Those soccer guys couldn't take it.
Danny genuinely bends steering shafts because of how strong he is when he drives a go-kart. This is not a joke. Like that is how much of an anomaly that guy is driving a go-kart. And so that's also why I'm so excited to see him go back to KA for the invitational race. But yeah, for me, we got to think about this, right? Because this shifter class, like you mentioned, top heavy in Winter Series, it's going to be stout for Pro Tour, right? GFC comes back with Pickett joining those guys, Wick, Gulick. We got AJ Myers is back, right? So, and hopefully, please praying, Marian, if you're listening, Marian, please come join us. We're gonna have.
I ran him off.
If you are an OTK team owner in the United States, I would like to pitch in a $2 donation to support the Mario Kremers to run shifter of Pro Tour efforts. So, Marian, if you're listening, I'll even chip in an extra $1 just if you text me about it. But hey, no, we want to see Marian.
I'll pay for your Orlando smoothie, Marian,
Yeah.
if you come over. So.
Yeah.
What does $3 get you? A little like 1 centimeter decal on the bottom of the skid pad? Is that
you get a pack of gum from the airport?
Not even.
But my point is, like, we're gonna have 10 to 12 guys that can arguably win the race at the Pro Tour, and no one thought last year, because it wasn't even a thought in our mind, because he wasn't doing KZ2 at the time. No one thought, around Winter Series of last year, oh, Morgado is going to be the guy to beat in shifter this year, and here we are a year later, and he's the guy to beat in shifter. I mean, his trajectory, he's still got training wheels on, to be honest, in the shifter class. And that's what's so scary, is that there's still things that he's going to learn, right, on the racecraft side of things, even though, again, pass of the weekend. But the starts, he's going to have to fix the starts when the field is a lot closer. And he's going to, right? This is a world champion at the end of the day. And so for me, it's one of those things where this is scary for the guys around him, and I'm excited.
Absolutely. I'm going to put you on the spot, Alex. Who do you think wins round 1 Orlando Pro Tour in shifter?
Mateus Morgado.
David, you're going to go with them?
I want to. I want to really badly. I think, you know what? I'm going to go with the logic that we saw in Miami. I think based on prior knowledge, Danny wins round 1, but Morgado, as things progress, will get faster. I think that's what we're going to be looking at throughout the season.
See, this is a 300 IQ play because now I'm not going to actually give my prediction. I'm going to wait until the next round and hold it to you guys, whatever you guys said now. So, no, I think I think at this point, like Danny obviously it's tailor-made for Orlando. Like Alex mentioned, like the curves there. Beyond the curves, so the amount of quick change of direction stuff that you see in Orlando, the hairpins, and kind of the quick flick corners, I think that kind of plays to Danny's style. Morgado, I mean, you have the long turn 7 sweeper, you have a couple other long-standing corners, but Orlando is definitely a Danny Formal track. But I mean, it's hard to argue against Mateus Morgado's form. It's hard to argue against anyone's form, really, because I mean, I have to say, like from this weekend, the one guy that I personally picked to win, and I have to say, like at this point, my predictions this year have not been off to the best of starts, but I picked Alisander to win both races. Better than round 1 and 2 in terms of like keeping himself out of trouble, but on the flip side, not quite as much raw pace. I mean, what did you guys take away from Isambard this weekend?
Alan, again, one of those things, right? Because our takeaway, collectively as a group, we all kind of said the same thing after rounds 1 and 2. It was arguably could have won, didn't happen because either just got outdriven by Danny Formal, which is a lot of guys have said that, and got into some scuffles, right, with a few guys, and we went into this weekend saying if he can keep his cool, keep his head about him, and drive his race at a track that he is got more laps than anybody, then this is going to be an Isambard weekend. And it was the exact opposite. He actually was able to stay out of trouble, but just pace wasn't there, surprisingly, right? There was never a point in this weekend where you looked at the times and was like, he can win. It was always Morgado and Formal, and that was it. Giorgio Carrara, actually, I want to give a shout out to Giorgio Carrara, though. On Friday, was incredibly fast. And considering he hadn't touched a go-kart since November at Supernats, I mean, didn't test. And so for him to show up and be quick out of the gate was impressive. I mean, there was points in this weekend where he was only about 2/10 off. So I think Giorgio's going to be a sleeper come Pro Tour. But Carrara was impressive. I think Isambard, again, on Saturday, got into it with Giorgio a little bit, lost the bumper. One of those things, maybe driving a little too hard. Sunday, just no pace for a guy of his caliber, for the amount of laps that he has around that place. So for me, my takeaway was that, I again kind of alludes back to my Sodi take. Love those guys. They have a really, really good program, but it boils down to the consistency, right? Like what happened from January to February.
Yeah, 100%. I think like this is, I think it's a Sodi thing. It's an Alan Isambard thing, and like for him to have the pace he did in round 1 and 2, like he was objectively quicker than Danny in the dry. Didn't come away with the win that weekend, right? This weekend, didn't have the pace. Did a decent job of maximizing his finish on Sunday. Had the bumper come off on Saturday. Like, I on the X30 side of things, I came away thinking, okay, like process-wise, they did really well that weekend. The results weren't quite exactly what you would have expected, but they had a lot to come. But if I'm Alan Isambard here, there's no way to really be optimistic about what happened at Winter Series. And the problem, I think, with Isambard is this is probably his best chance in terms of like offset to the rest of the field to get a good race win. Now you go into Pro Tour, you go into the rest of the season. I'm not exactly sure what his national schedule is going to look like, but it's just going to be hard to kind of overcome the mental side of things. We mentioned with Diego and with Paulie and of course Ryan and RPG, the confidence building, right? The optimism that comes from running at the front and getting the results that you want to get. The opposite is true though. Like when you go to your home racetrack, and last year against AJ Myers, Isambard went toe to toe with him, right? Which at the time maybe wasn't quite as expected. This year he comes back on a factory car, on a Sodi kart with full help, full support, a lot of testing at that track. It's his home track, and he has the raw pace in round 1. He doesn't have the pace in weekend number 2. You wonder where it goes from here, where you can find that last bit, how you can kind of jump over the hurdle and kind of make that difference. And I thought coming into this weekend, this would be the weekend that Isambard kind of gets over that jump at his home track and has the chance to win. It didn't happen, and now I look at it like, okay, like where can you go? But on the flip side, Alex, your point about Giorgio Carrara, perfectly well stated. I mean, had not been in a go-kart since November, turns around. Friday goes quickest in a couple different sessions, looks the part, struggled a little bit once it got to actual racing, but I mean, to me, guys, that's two guys that have completely different outlooks on their weekend. And even though they were at the same place on the racetrack, same general pace, just does not kind of, you couldn't have two more different approaches to how the same sort of weekend end up for both of those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Again, Giorgio to me was the standout guy just because of how little testing he was able to do, and to be this quick. Right, again, goes back to the Inter-MS guys. They have developed a team that can compete with anybody, and so now they have a good package in Senior Pro, and they have a good package in Shifter. And so for me, if I'm a driver looking at teams that I want to be a part of, they've entered that list of they can give me the best chance at a victory, right? And so I'll all of a sudden look for Inter-MS to be one of those Big Tent guys with all the chassis and everything ready to go. I think they've been very impressive. I think they have a good package on Senior Shifter, and they're going to develop it in the junior categories and below. So this is a team that is still building, still learning, still growing, and yet they're succeeding already. So yeah, ultimately super pressed from Giorgio Carrara.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we're going to see a lot more of Giorgio at the front as he gets more confident with the KR because remember, too, this is only his third weekend on a KR chassis. He ran Rock Vegas was his first weekend, switching from the Lenzo kart. His second weekend was at Supernats, and his third weekend was now round number 2. So for Giorgio, too, new chassis and shifter, that's a little bit more to get used to. I mean, I think it was a good effort from him. And David, I mean, as we look through the rest of the shifter field, is there anyone else notable that you really want to talk about before we kind of get into our final thoughts here?
I'll be honest, I think you guys kind of covered it. I think the only thing I would say about Isambard that, kind of building off of your point, Emory, is that, I think you see it in racing, all forms of racing. Some weekends, a guy who is typically a midfielder will have a weekend where he will just pop off and he'll be there right at the front. And if he can't break through when he has that weekend, typically you see a regression. And I think that's just what happened with Isambard. He had his opportunity. He didn't get there. He didn't get to the promised lands. And then you come back the next weekend. Like you said, the confidence is a little bit lower. Maybe you're under driving to try to make up for some of the criticism he received in the previous weekend. Or, maybe he's just not driving as confidently as he was the previous weekend. And that's where the regression happened. But, Alan was definitely exciting in that first weekend. That's for sure. And hopefully he'll be able to in the pro events he continues to enter throughout 2024 can find some of that form, because to me, pro shifter is best when you got 5 or 6 guys who are running really, really hard and really, really fast. The good news is, as the season really starts to kick off, you are going to have 5 or 6 guys up at the front consistently who are going to be battling for the win. So I'm so excited for shifter this year.
Yeah, as our producer Kyle pointed out in our chat here, at the end of the day, our commentator for the weekend, co-commentator for the weekend, Henry Bodette, convinced Alan Isambard to pick the Detroit Lions to win the Super Bowl. And I have to say, the team that finished tied for third in the standings this year in the NFL, it's only fitting that Isambard was stuck in that third to fourth place battle all weekend long. So I'm not saying that Isambard's lack of pace is by any means tied to that. However, it's a little bit of a coincidence, And so, Alan, if you're looking for someone to find that last bet, you should have convinced Henry you should have had Henry convince you to take the Chiefs. That would have put you over the top this weekend. But no, I mean, I think Alan's a good driver. I think he's got a little bit to work on when it comes to the racecraft side of things. I think when it comes to other tracks outside of Homestead, it'll be interesting to see how he can carry his pace from round 1 and 2 over. But I think I'm excited to see him with a full-ish season with Sodi Kart and what he can pull off. And I mean, Alex, we get set to go for the rest of the season as we finish up with Winter Series, I mean, how much are you looking forward to the rest of this 2024 pro season?
I mean, we're gonna kick it off, right, with Norberg Invitational starting in March, Pro Show for the Pro Tour. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this, and we have so much lined up here at Kart Chaser for all the broadcasts we got going on. I mean, we our team has grown so much. We have so many broadcasts happening this year, so I'm so excited as a team ourselves to just be out there to continue growing the sport. For sure, right? We just announced today CKNA confirmed. We're going to be going to all the CKNA national events. So again, just adding on to kind of our list of races that we're going to be attending. But yeah, like I said, Norberg Invitational, a lot of money on the line there. A lot of money on the line. The Pro Tour coming up with the Pro Show, USPKS. It's looking to be, like I mentioned earlier, one of the best years of karting that I've ever seen. I mean, this in terms of shifter with how stacked that is. I'm looking. I think back to the Robert Wickens days. I look back to the Kirkwood and the Askew days, right? And here in senior, it's kind of like the OGP days, right? I mean, this is how stacked these rosters, these lineups are. And so I think we're gonna have some of the best pro showdowns we've seen in a while.
And David, I mean, first 2 months of the season wrapped up. We've seen Homestead 1 and 2. We've seen Homestead 3 and 4. We've seen a lot of action. I mean, what are you looking for heading into the rest of the season?
This has been a great appetizer, hasn't it? It's just kind of like you look at the quality of the racing and you look at all the storylines that have formed over Winter Tour, and then you say, not everybody's here yet. We're going to get to see, more and more competitive drivers and teams come in throughout the season. What's up?
Nothing. I said, I'm here.
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, exactly. You're going to see guys come up and they're going to say, I'm here. It's going to be great. It's good. And that's what's going to be so fun about this season. Like Alex talked about, it's really going to be so competitive throughout the year. And as broadcasters, that's what we want to see. I'm looking forward to covering the Norberg Nats. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. It's almost like karting's version of IROC. If those, I'm an old man. Maybe I should have said SRX, but I look at things that are kind of an all-star format with big money, and I say IROC. So I think that's going to be really, really neat. I think that's going to help grow the sport and shine a spotlight on drivers of various karting disciplines all racing together. I think that's just going to be fantastic, and I can't wait to get to Orlando to see what that's all about.
Yeah, and real quickly, I mean, while we're on the subject and before we head on out of here, I have to say, I might be one of the only people that has ever driven an Australian pursuit in U.S. karting, and I made it a grand total of one corner before getting eliminated. Not even one corner. It was during COVID. There was a shootout race at Trackhouse, and I was so happy. It was like 40 guys there. It was the same kind of deal as Norberg, just instead of winning thousands of dollars, you won a set of tires and a gift card from Eric Jones. Similar stakes, right? And so I got to the last race, and it's me, Paulie, Connor Zilish, Brent Cruz, and defending USPKS champion at the time, Blake Hunt. And
give me Emory Lyda.
Yeah, well, I wanted to give myself that. The problem is I came out of turn 11 at GoPro and I hit the curb. On the start.
I've done that.
So I like set the field, but the problem is I accelerated before turn 11, hit the curb on exit. I don't even get it down the straight and I get past and eliminated. Like, literally went out there for a grand total of a formation lap in 2 seconds. So I would wager that pretty much everyone that runs the Norberg Invitational that gets into that format is going to have a better performance than me. I'm not personally going to be there because I'll be at CKNA Charlotte. Looking forward to that race in our hometown. But again, like Alex said, we've got a lot of fun things planned, whether it be with our podcasts, talking about Grid Talk, getting through all of these episodes, whether it be all the national stuff we're going to be doing, the grassroots side of things too. We've got a lot of expanded coverage there. It's a great time to be following karting on Kart Chaser. It's powered by shopakr.com. Before we leave, David, any last thoughts? Any last Purdy comparisons?
No, No, I think I've talked more than enough during this podcast.
Hey,
I've given
David.
everyone a lot of content.
David, where's Marion Crummers from?
He's from Dutchland. Okay, he's from wherever the Dutch are from. Holland, Holland, right? Yeah,
Netherlands.
The Netherlands. Hey, you can call it Holland. You can call it Holland.
Holland is a soccer player.
Oh my God.
All right,
that's enough of David
that's
talking.
enough.
We got the IndyCar season coming up. I'm trying to keep my job, okay?
All right, Alex. Any last GOAT talk discussions? Good weekend for the brands.
Oh, I mean, we rep the brand well. Shout out Emory and I, the only Patrick Mahomes stands in the entire crew. And he got it done again, right? He's the greatest of all time. Not Tom Brady. Sorry, Tom Brady. Yeah, nonetheless, right? Shout out Chiefs. They get it done. Let's go.
Alex, the one multifaceted fan, has the right opinion about Patrick Mahomes, so I have to give him that. Shout out to Donovan Bonilla as well for not only the win this weekend, but also repping Patrick Mahomes being the greatest of all time in our prediction video. But on a serious note, I mean, great racing from Bonilla, great racing from Alisander Dulio to come away with the championship. Brandon Carr with a win. Mateus Morgado with multiple race wins. Through all of this, I hope the biggest thing is this was an outstanding winter series with a lot of great racing that we were able to cover. And I'm sure that there's a lot more that's going to happen this season. We'll be back to cover the Nürburgring Invitational, the SKUSA Pro Tour, and everything else coming your way for the rest of 2024. But for now, we've said enough tonight. From Emory Lyda, myself, David Land, Alexander Searle, Alisander Dulio with a great guest appearance. This is Grid Talk, sponsored by shopakr.com, and we will be back for more.